Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on the royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: Harry and Meghan in tears after shocking revelation about Archie and Lilibet. British TV host Piers Morgan questioned where Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet were born in a number of TV appearances. This brought the media frenzy over the Duke and Duchess of Sussex back to life. His appearances on TV showed how much the pair wanted to be alone, which was different from how the royal family has always been open and followed ceremonial rules, particularly when it comes to births of future successors. What started as a pointed journalistic questioning of the Sussexes' birth-related ritual choices quickly turned into a public discussion about journalistic responsibility, what the public expects from a monarchy that they pay for and admire, and the constitutional and symbolic roles that royal birth rituals have played over the years. The scandal started when Morgan appeared on TV. On a prominent morning TV program, he suddenly said that the entrance of Archie and Lilibet left unanswered problems. He said that he was doing so for the public good and that breaking royal protocol hurt crucial public and constitutional interests. He didn't provide a general condemnation. Instead, he cited specific facts and supposed problems. His organized presentation made his beliefs clear and allowed both fans and critics a way to talk about them in public. His step-by-step checklist-style look at omissions and oddities made the assertions simple to repeat, meme, and add to conversations that prefer clear stories over complicated ones. Morgan's critique was divided into 5 significant breaks from the norm. He compared the Sussexes' choices to the unwritten standards of royal birth culture. His main complaints were that there was no usual post-birth photo on the steps of the Lindo wing at St. Mary's Hospital, no signed bulletin from senior royal medical staff, inconsistencies and lack of clarity about the announced place of birth, and a change to a later public record about the mother's name on the birth certificate. Morgan thought that these data, when looked at together, showed a pattern of hiding or avoiding the truth that needed further examination. If he framed it this way, he could go beyond asking about individual cases to establish a pattern. No one deviation was enough to prove his point, but together they made a plausible picture of hiding something to an audience that was already skeptical of ritual deviations. The first debate was the presentation of a newborn royal on the Lindo wing steps at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London. This was a casual ceremony that was very important to the public. After several famous royal births, the public expects this. It serves both symbolic and practical objectives. The royal family has used the Lindo wing, a high-end maternity facility at St. Mary's, that attracts rich and famous patients for a few restricted press events. Princess Anne initiated this tradition, and it became famous when Diana, Princess of Wales, appeared with Prince William in 1982 and Prince Harry in 1984. Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, kept it going with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Many people see of these public rituals as an unwritten agreement between the monarchy and its subjects. The royal family celebrates and certifies a birth in exchange for privacy. The Lindo wing appearance was both utilitarian and romantic at a time when the press and public sought quick visual proof. The monarchy was able to affect people's feelings, happiness, comfort, and the news that followed by being on those steps for a short time and doing a good job of it. In the days before digital cameras, a newspaper photograph might set the mood for days or weeks. In today's media world, pictures are still the most important part of social media answers and top stories. The Sussexes broke that pattern once their son Archie was born in 2019. This has both symbolic and communication effects. Early on, communication was restricted and carefully planned. A statement said the Duchess had gone into labor but didn't say where. Hours later, a palace bulletin said the baby had been born. Prince Harry made a short solo appearance on TV from Windsor. Instead of the Lindo wing steps, there was a short photo call in St. George's Hall at Windsor Castle 2 days following the birth. Palace officials claimed the two preferred a more private gathering, which was in line with their declared goal of protecting their family from journalists. Morgan thought that not having an instant public photo op was a break from a public tradition that, in his words, was a vow of transparency, a clear public sign that a royal kid existed and had been born within constitutional principles that protect the monarchy. Morgan's critics say that making the Lindo wing ceremony more important might convert a cultural tradition that makes people feel good into a fake legal responsibility. They said that civil law records births no matter where the parents are, thus St. Mary's stairs don't matter. Morgan's supporters, on the other hand, said that the monarchy's legitimacy depended as much on how people feel about it as it does on laws. They said that traditions like the Lindo wing appearance maintain an unspoken agreement between the Queen and the people. The discussion over interpretation showed that individuals had very different views of the monarchy. Some perceive it as a legal and institutional organization that can function without ceremony, while others see it as a living symbol whose meaning depends on performance and reciprocity. Second, Morgan didn't like how important and powerful the royal medical establishment was. Historically challenged births in the line of succession were handled with institutional gravity because of worries about the Constitution. Ministers and witnesses were sometimes there to attest to succession in the past. This was inspired by historical controversies such as the birth of James Francis Edward Stuart in 1688. By the middle of the 20th century, government officials stopped going to delivery rooms. The last time they did was for deliveries before Prince Charles's in 1948. Today, an official birth announcement normally put on an easel outside Buckingham Palace would include the signatures of the doctors who were there and affirm the health of the mother and child. Even though it wasn't legally obligatory, such a broadcast had institutional weight and calmed a public that was accustomed to royal life events being open. Signed notifications connected private medical practice with public constitutional interest. Under constitutional monarchies, ceremonies, written notices, and official bulletins have always made private family events public record and a source of comfort. Buckingham Palace announced Archie's birth. However, the original report didn't name the physicians who were there, and later broadcasts of the formal announcement left out the signatures of top royal medical professionals. Medical staff probably were there for the delivery, but royal reporters and onlookers pointed out that there was no official record of it. Morgan said that this omission was a big blunder since it meant that the public had to trust the Sussexes' account of events based on private claim instead of formal medical notice. He added, "All we have is their word," which turned a procedural difference into an argument about evidence and verification. People criticized Morgan for focusing on the signed bulletin, since modern systems of administration and civil registration have made it less necessary to have ceremonial attestations to avoid succession problems. Birth certificates, medical records, and DNA testing make it less probable that someone would switch identities or commit fraud than it was hundreds of years before. People who were against ceremonial medical attestation also brought up patient privacy and parental control over who may see medical information. The Sussexes' supporters maintained that restricting public documents was a response to a media environment that was out to get them, not an attempt to cover shady origins. Third, inconsistencies between birthplaces and timelines were fixed. Early reports from the Sussex camp and press media said that the baby would be born in Frogmore Cottage, or that plans were being made for a more private arrival. Later, Archie's birth certificate said that he was born in the Portland Hospital in London. Morgan used this apparent difference to say that the change from a home birth tale to a hospital delivery raised questions about why the initial account didn't match the official record. If everything is evident, why does the story constantly changing? She said that the couple's message was meant to be confusing. Opponents of the union were suspicious of the birth and since it happened in a hospital, but they thought it was manufactured to make it seem more private. The home hospital birth binary doesn't work in real life. Plans for labor may change abruptly for medical reasons, and a hospital transfer might happen without anybody knowing. Media narratives prefer clean tales such as home birth as a sign of privacy and hospital delivery as a sign of institutional exposure. So a change in the story is seen as evidence of lying. In a high-stakes public setting like a royal birth, any difference between what was spoken at the beginning and what was written down later is important and should be looked very closely. Morgan and his followers regarded the difference as evidence of their claim of intentional lack of clarity, not merely a change in plans. Morgan said that an Archie birth certificate change was the last thing to happen. When the birth was registered, the Duchess's name, Rachel Meghan, was changed to Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Buckingham Palace later said that this was a clerical change made at their office's request, but it got the media's attention and sparked more speculation. Morgan thought the change was another odd way to handle official papers. In his account, any strange change to a royal record suggested a bigger pattern of confusion, since royal records are usually handled carefully and public clarity is the most important thing. With civil registrations, names can be spelled, titles can be changed, and clerical errors can be repaired. With monarchy, however, even simple bureaucratic duties have symbolic value. There were problems with giving a name to a title since the royal family had both private and public records. A person might be both a private individual and a public office holder at the same time. Morgan noted that altering the mother's name on a public document may be perceived as an attempt to make the couple's representation more professional or clean. The defense, on the other hand, contended that administrative changes do not influence legitimacy or legality. Morgan said that the Sussexes were hiding because of these four things: the lack of a photo call at the Lindo wing, the lack of a signed physician's bulletin, the change in the place and time of delivery, and the change to the birth certificate. He simply said, if they sought royal titles and places in line for the throne, why would they refuse or avoid the traditions and public verification that have always supported them? He asked why previous royal generations had shared such information so openly and proposed that hiding it may be a way to hide something. Morgan's way of using language shows how people think about the obligations that come with privilege. He said that titles and status are public trusts that need to be given and received. Some people who subscribe in this contract-like monarchy notion think that the Sussexes' partial departure from ceremonial exposure while yet keeping their stylistic and familial links to the throne is an unfair arrangement. This argument was based on what people expected of each other, not what the law said. It was moral and rhetorical, not legal. The broadcast produced impacts that were felt right away and all over the place. Morgan's portion went viral on social media, and big news organizations in the UK and throughout the globe reported on it. Several publications mentioned people close to the Sussexes who indicated the couple was upset. Reports say that Prince Harry was irritated by the public's questions and quickly spoke to his lawyers and public relations experts. The plan involves asking broadcasters to take back their statements, submitting formal complaints with the broadcasting authorities, and thinking about suing for defamation. The media portrayed the couple's stated agitation as a fresh twist in the narrative, regardless of whether or not such actions were done. Each reported effort to silence or question Morgan's assertions made the situation worse. People in the UK who are famous may submit complaints with the broadcast authority Ofcom for TV and sue for defamation. Regulators check broadcasting standards and may punish those who break them, whereas defamation lawsuits demand proof that false statements caused or will cause significant harm. In a world full of media, threats of legal action could lead to retractions, changes to phrasing, or a counter-narrative that the claimant is protecting their reputation. The Sussexes had already sued British media, thus hiring attorneys was part of a bigger fight with the press. Morgan's calmness was in stark contrast to Prince Harry's angry outbursts on social media and in newspapers. The popular hashtags and memes leveraged this difference to turn a nuanced issue into a tale. With pictures, a calm Morgan versus a panicking Harry. Even if they are reductive, these kinds of simplifications may change how people see things in the digital age by giving them basic, easy-to-understand, and often shared representations. A lot of people who watch the game knew that being highly defensive might mean that someone has hidden goals. Social media makes emotional extremes more interesting. GIFs, tweets, and short films like stories that are simple to understand and show a lot of emotion. Morgan's calm, almost dramatic manner was different from Sussex camp pictures and reports that focused on emotional intensity. The digital economy's click shares and short attention spans made things worse. It was less probable that complicated legal intricacies of birth registration and constitutional law would gain traction than simple marketing frameworks that let individuals quickly and loudly select a side. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, did not respond to Morgan's remarks in public. In the days and weeks following the broadcasts, neither the Duchess nor her staff reacted to the accusations on social media or via official means. Commentators and analysts had diverse ideas about what that stillness meant. Some people thought it was a calculated attempt to keep the argument from going on by not reacting to the broadcast. Some people thought the silence was strange or unsettling because they thought it would be seen as giving up or letting a tale that wasn't questioned take root. Some tabloids thought the silence meant the pair was having trouble managing their problem or was pulling out of the situation. People looked closely at the Duchess's quiet no matter what the explanation was. Others have used silence as a technique in public life for a long time. Sometimes it cuts off a story's oxygen, and other times it creates a vacuum that others happily fill. The Sussexes' method of not getting too involved with some British media is to put privacy first and not allow quick rebuttals. That strategy has costs. In a world where news is always on, long periods of silence might be regarded as evasion, and repeated denials could be used against allegations later. So the two had to think about the hazards of becoming involved and not being able to see the public discussion. Morgan manipulated the couple's feelings to make his judgment stronger. He didn't provide any new evidence. Instead, he often used the couple's answers, especially Prince Harry's claim that he was upset, to indirectly back up his prior questions. He stated in a follow-up segment, "If asking a question gets someone so upset, maybe it's a question worth asking." This rhetorical approach changed the focus of the argument from the factual basis of the original statements to the emotional reaction of the main characters. For some viewers and media outlets looking for an interesting angle, the narrative of a calm presenter and a passionate prince who protects her appeared interesting. Effective adjudication, in which emotions replace evidence, is a contemporary media trend. Appearance and conduct may serve as substitutes for fact. People who like the Sussexes dub this dynamic a trial by performance, where beauty or anger decides who is credible. Morgan's approach showed a contradiction in how public opinion on the air affects how people trust and feel guilty. In the days that followed, Morgan added a constitutional argument to his critique. He made it apparent in an evening broadcast that his concerns about the births were linked to the children's succession status. He wanted to know what royal titles meant if the Sussexes wouldn't be open about their birth. His inquiries transcended procedural transparency to confront apprehensions over the symbolic and institutional legitimacy of royal rituals. Morgan asked a normative inquiry regarding whether titles get their power just from lineage or also from public-facing norms that help maintain faith in institutions. Because the law already recognizes the children as legitimate offspring of a monarch's son, there is no legal foundation for such a claim. To comprehend such assumption, we must succinctly examine succession law and history. Laws and long-standing customs govern the British royal succession. The Act of Settlement of 1701 stated that the sovereign had to be a Protestant descendant of Sophia Electress of Hanover. The Succession to the Crown Act 2013 put an end to male preference primogeniture and replaced it with absolute primogeniture for those born after October 28, 2011. These laws explain how legal descent works in terms of succession, but the ceremonies and procedures that have happened before births and birth announcements have helped prove that the baby is real and put to rest worries about ancestry. Modern record-keeping and medical and genetic verification have made it improbable that there are phony heirs, but confirmation rituals are still significant. Morgan's assertion that tradition constitutes an interwoven framework that sustains public trust in the monarchy invoked its symbolic aspect. Constitutional lawyers and scholars emphasize strong legal protections that ensure succession as a matter of law and public record. They said that the place where a kid was born, the form of a public picture, or the wording of a notice do not modify the law that decides who gets the property. But institutions must have authorization support and symbolic validation to be legally legitimate. Morgan leveraged this difference to change the issue from whether the kids had the right to their seats in court, which they did, to whether their births fit with a paradigm of openness in the monarchy that he regarded as part of the monarchy's moral and cultural value. It is said that the Sussex side responded forcefully when the debate was framed more sharply as a question of the children's legitimacy. Meghan, who had remained silent, was said to be quite angry that people were doubting her children's status. Some others said that turning a privacy problem into a challenge to the children's status was against parental rights and the well-being of the children. British news focused on the constitutional problem, with top articles questioning the Sussex children's validity and constitutional experts being invited in to look at the legal and symbolic effects of Morgan's claims. Constitutional attorneys and experts said that the children's legal circumstances were strong, but there was more public controversy. Escalation brought to light an ethical problem that a lot of people found troubling. People who asked questions about babies that suggested wrongdoing thought them rude and unnecessary. People often talk about the health and dignity of children when they want to restrict media attention. Morgan's detractors stated that even if his first inquiries were appropriate for public discourse, the leap from procedural inquiry to questioning the authenticity of children went too far and may hurt the family. There have been conflicting assertions about privacy status and responsibility that have affected the Sussexes' relationship with the British media. These arguments are at the heart of the birth issue and Morgan's role in it. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said they want to live more discreetly than other royals when they started dating, and especially after they decided to step down from important royal duties in 2020. They say that the intense and invasive media attention, especially from British tabloids, is what made them go to North America and want to be financially independent. From this perspective, declining the Lindo wing appearance or downplaying birth facts is a parental strategy to protect their children from the public scrutiny experienced by Prince Harry in his youth. The Sussexes' choice of privacy, meanwhile, brings up a bigger moral issue about people's rights and responsibilities to the public. The British monarchy trades visibility ritual and symbolic performance for popular trust and support. Births, marriages, and ceremonial events publicly display and normalize the monarchy, helping it to stay in place as an institution. Many people thought it was strange that the Sussexes wanted to keep titles, styles, and some royal status, while rejecting or modifying the public rituals of the monarchy. Critics stated that if you want to enjoy royal privileges, you also have to accept some of the public-facing duties and obligations that come with them. Supporters of the pair said that the monarchy had changed or gotten rid of many rights without falling apart. For the last 100 years, royals have dealt with being in the public eye and being alone based on their own preferences and what others like. They argued that the responsibilities of announcing a birth were more flexible than their opponents said, and that members could correctly discuss how much public exposure they had. The Sussexes say that the monarchy's constitutional role in the UK has changed to suit changing societal norms. So ceremonial expectations are not always the same. Piers Morgan's rhetorical attack grasped this split and struck a chord with many who were worried about the monarchy's future and openness. His broadcast changed the couple's worries about privacy into a selective abandoning of normal duties, moving the public discourse from press intrusion to responsibility and reciprocity. The argument was also a reflection of cultural disputes in the UK and US. Others who supported the Sussexes and many others who witnessed the racially charged media environment thought that Morgan's criticism was part of a long-running racially charged campaign against Meghan, a biracial woman and mother of 2 mixed-race children. Putting a lot of emphasis on birth rules might be a sneaky way to cast doubt on her honesty and the status of her children. People who liked Morgan said he was using free speech to criticize a public figure who desired royal benefits without having to do royal obligations. A lot of the news and remarks about Meghan have been racist. Several tabloids reporting used racist language, images, and hints according to analysts and critics. Families whose racial or ethnic backgrounds have influenced their public image incur higher expenses when claims transition from procedural inquiry to conjecture over paternity and identification. Critics of Morgan's idea said that birth ceremonies may be used against other people by making them question their origins in ways that have been utilized against colored characters in the past. Even though there was a lot of arguing, the accusations weren't settled. Morgan and the Sussexes did not make any additional documentary evidence available to the public that was clear-cut, and no formal retractions or admissions modified the facts that were known to the public. Instead of answering in public, the two kept working from California. The royal family didn't say anything about the issue because of the institutional rule, never complain, never explain. Because of his quiet, Morgan's narrative stayed in the public mind and was made bigger by media coverage. The royal family's refusal to get involved in tabloid fights has been praised as dignified restraint and condemned as indifference that allows lies to spread. In today's media environment, staying quiet may be the best option, particularly if taking legal action might give a story more life. However, it can also be regarded as missing an opportunity to clear up a misunderstanding. Royal families depend on both official authority and popular affection, so they have a tough decision to make: respond or stay silent and let public opinion decide. But the incident changed how people saw the Sussexes in public. Morgan's broadcast intervention demonstrated the influence of a well-structured and well-disseminated media campaign on online discourse. Morgan's calm on-air look and Prince Harry's purported emotional and reactionary position became a common issue in the news that changed how people saw the pair in public, whether it was fair or not. Morgan finished one show with, "We're just getting started," which was both a promise to his audience and a rhetorical jab at the couple. It showed that they wanted to keep looking into their business and kept the door open for new information interpretations or media attention. This argument brought up problems that keep coming up and are still not answered about how to balance private life with public constitutional obligations. It demonstrated the challenges of reconciling very personal choices on childbirth parenting and familial privacy with historical and symbolic institutional expectations. In a time of quick social change and speedy mass communication, public debates on duty legitimacy and the destiny of the monarchy were thrown off course by procedural problems. It demonstrated that story framing, emotional influence, and social media amplification may shape public understanding as effectively and perhaps more rapidly than formal institutions or factual facts in contemporary media ecosystems. So the narrative shows how celebrity culture, privacy laws, and constitutional traditions that have been around for hundreds of years come together. In a world where the media is broken rituals that used to give people trust in the public have turned into battlegrounds for different stories about authenticity, authority, and belonging. Morgan's talk about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex went on even if what he said was genuine. So the argument shows that there are bigger and yet unsolved problems with private home life in one of the most well-known companies in the world. The episode finishes with a number of questions that are still unsolved and will continue to affect how people talk about the monarchy and modern public life. How do democratic nations and their media reconcile genuine public interest with individual liberty, particularly when individuals are both private and public figures? What kind of transparency is needed for trust in institutions, and what kind is just a relic that doesn't hurt public trust? How much should previous actions be seen as obligations that can't be changed versus cultural habits that can be changed? Lastly, what moral rules should govern how the media questions the dignity and well-being of children? To answer these questions, we need to think about more than simply great TV displays. We also need to think about legal, ethical, and cultural considerations. The Sussexes' lawsuit and the media frenzy around Archie and Lilibet's births illustrate that the stakes are quite high. How these problems are handled will affect the privacy, publicity, and accountability of prominent personalities in a time of fast worldwide communication. They will also affect how people think about broadcast provocateurs, how institutions should respond to public concern, and how ready media consumers are to accept changes in the way things are done in a constitutional monarchy. The controversy is still a touchstone. It shows how a series of small departures from custom can turn into a big story about legitimacy and secrecy, how pundits on TV can use emotional frames to shape the public's imagination, and how rituals that were once thought to be unimportant to governance can become the tools that modern publics use to decide private choices and public expectations. The Sussexes' desire for privacy, the public's need for comfort in institutions, and the media's penchant to portray issues in moral terms will probably lead to more flashpoints in the future. The challenge will be to judge them in ways that respect each person's dignity, keep institutions open where it matters, and not confuse stylistic differences with real fraud. This way, real curiosity doesn't turn into unfair suspicion, and the public square still has the right to ask questions and the duty to avoid harm. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.